their shirts all soaked with sweat. He's riding hard to catch that herd, but he ain't caught him yet. And he's got to ride forever on that range up in the sky. On horses coursing fire as they ride on here to cry. As the riders float on by, he'll hear one call his name. If you want to save your soul from hell riding on our range, then cowboy, change your ways today, or with us you will ride. Ride and kiss the devil's herd across the scraggy sky. Yippee-i-ho!
I was laying in bed one night at college, and my dad called me, and he said, son, what do you think about going on a cow drive from Texas to Montana? Well, and I just laughed at him. I thought he was crazy, you know. I thought, boy, you've lost your mind.
I heard about it, and I went home and told my dad, and at first he said we was crazy and dreamers, but he found out that it was real and we could get hired, and he said if he had the opportunity that I did, he'd be there with me. And so we got a letter a week later, said we was hired, and we were here.
The Great American Cattle Drive was a dream cooked up by a former phone company executive who was inspired by the movie Lonesome Dove. His idea was to trail over 250 longhorns on a 6-month, 1,500-mile trek north across the United States. It would be from Fort Worth, Texas to Miles City, Montana. The event was to honor the great cattle drives of the late 1800s and as tribute to the spirit of the American cowboy. There were plenty of naysayers, those who said they would never make it, but despite the credibility problems, the Great American Cattle Drive left Fort Worth, Texas on March 5th, 1995 in the midst of cold and rain. And for the next 100 days, they were to see less than 12 days of sunshine. The drive encountered every kind of weather imaginable, including a tornado in Nebraska.
I never seen lightning like that. It would come to the ground and then bounce off and run across the ground till it run into something. And 7 of us jumped in the pickup and started town, and there was trees falling and power lines coming down, and the pickup was rocking. I kind of thought maybe that was the end for us, but it never touched down in town.
And like the Lonesome Dove experience it was a drive that had it all. Stampedes, heroics, hardships, snow, sleet, heat, thirst, injuries, and the unexpected. Lots of unexpected. In Oklahoma, a chuck wagon stampede was triggered by the sight of ostriches.
A bunch of them ran to the back gate, and then one male ostrich come running up and flapping his wings and jumping on the fence. And them shire horses are already looking for something to do, so they got their cue to go, and they went. So they was digging pavement up. If you ain't never seen the shire horse's hooves, they're about this big around, and they weigh over 2,000 pounds. So it was pretty exciting.
In Kansas, lightning struck and killed a horse.
Jess's grandfather let him ride one of his horses. He took it to Fort Worth and was to ride all the way to Montana. But in the storm at Scott City, when the tornado and lightning was so bad, the horse was struck by lightning, and of course, it was killed, and they had to leave the horse. They had to leave, and they went on. But that was one of the sad things that happened on the trail.
In Texas, before they barely got on their way, like Lonesome Dove, they lost their first cook.
About the third night out, well, him and the boss, Bud, got upset with him because he didn't cook any supper. And he said, well, there's nothing here to cook. And so they kind of got into an argument, so Bud fired him. And so then they catered some stuff out, and they wouldn't ever bring enough to everybody. And everybody tried to be first in line because the ones at the tail end wasn't going to get too much to eat. And they were short. They was short on finances, too, and it was just those things that kind of made it pretty difficult for a while till I guess they got somebody else to finance or come in with some more money and something, then they started feeding us.
The Great American Cattle Drive experienced financial problems, but all along the way, there was always a tremendous amount of public pride and support.
All the people involved were very good to us.
and they busted their ass to make us welcome. And we wouldn't have made it without them. It was really good.
The people have been so wonderful to take the boys and show them the country and different things that it's been a tremendous experience for them.
And bring out food for them. They really, the communities have just opened up and fed them, and they thought it was great.
In one community, the local folks heard on a radio station that the drovers liked sweets. The camp that night was swamped with desserts. The Great American Cattle Drive left the Fort Worth stockyards on Saturday, March 5th, after a 3-day send-off celebration. The riders and the herd were escorted by Fort Worth police officers mounted on horseback. According to the drovers, that was to be the beginning of nothing but wet weather for somewhere around 100 days, plus or minus a few days it wasn't raining.
It rained every day from Fort Worth to North Platte, Nebraska for 103 days straight.
It rained on us 109 days.
We had 112 days of rain.
On a rainy day that lasted for 90 days.
The first 100 days it rained on us about 75.
We had everything except for snow. We didn't have any snow, but we had tornadoes and sleet and rain and mud and standing water. We had a couple camps we went through, we had 2 or 3 feet of standing water. When we got to camp in the morning, we left out, it'd be freezing cold, and our mustaches would be all frozen to our face.
We had more water this year than we've had in 5 years, and it hit us hard. Only thing we ain't had is a tornado. I mean, no, we've had a tornado in Scott City. Yeah, that's right. It was an earthquake we ain't had yet. That was what it was.
If you check your weather records all the way up, they set records in Kansas, precipitation records in Kansas. We got 4 inches in Dodge City. We were there 4 days, and they got 4 inches of rain.
Did you ever think it was going to quit raining?
No, my feet are webbed. All of the cowboys' feet are webbed. Yeah, we can swim in it.
I spent some of the coldest days of my life on this trail. There was a couple of days that I was sure enough proud to get off that horse and just get somewhere where it's warm. And there was a lot of times that there wasn't no place to go when it was warm.
The second half of the trip, they burned up. Some of the cowboys thought that was worse than the rain.
When they come out of Texas across the Red River, they had a pretty good stampede coming across the river, and they lost somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe 15 to 20 head, and had to go back and dig them out of the woods the next day, but it was pretty exciting.
The first major stop was in El Reno, Oklahoma.
A month when we got to El Reno, and we stayed there and had our ranch rodeo there, and then went on to Dodge City, Kansas. We put our rodeo on there.
In Dodge City, the cattle drive rolled into town on May 5th, exactly 2 months after they left. They were greeted by a mounted cavalry patrol posting colors and presenting sabers. On the way into the state, the cattle drive was joined by direct descendants of the Goodnight, Loving, and Chisholm families, a highlight for everyone.
I met Don Goodnight and his crew that day crossing the Cimarron. He had 16 of his clan in the drive, and he's a grandson of the fellow that made up the Goodnight Trail. That was a sight.
Yeah, the old Charles Goodnight from the Goodnight Loving Trail, and my grandfather Frank Goodnight at Inglewood were cousins. And of course, after the cattle drive days, while my grandfather and old Charles Goodnight done a lot of business together, I had 110 miles of trail from Buffalo, Oklahoma to Dodge City, Kansas for the Great American Cattle Drive. I was a scout all through that area.
As the drive neared Dodge City, Don pushed cattle while wearing a pair of Charles Goodnight spurs, carrying a letter written by Oliver Loving and taking along a special steer named Smoky, named after Don's dad.
Bought a black steer, a 4-year-old in Fort Worth, and branded him with the Goodnight brand, and he's on the drive. A little black 4-year-old with a rafter G on the left shoulder. When we went through into Dodge City, why, we came onto the same trail that Charles Goodnight would have driven cattle. And when we drove that steer with the Goodnight brand into Dodge, that's the first time a Goodnight steer had been trailed into Dodge since 1886.
I imagine that was quite a moment for you.
Yeah, it was. It was really something to think about it when we drove those cattle into Dodge. That it's been 109 years since any cattle had been trailed in with the Goodnight brand on them.
Trail drives were big business. From 1865 to 1885, hundreds of thousands of cattle were pointed north to the railheads along such trails as the Western, Chisholm, Sedalia, and Goodnight Loving.
Biggest deal was to get them out of the brush and form them into herds and get them halfway trail broke, and then drive them north to the people that where they could ship the beef to Chicago and to Union Stockyards up there, which was a principal target. Some of them went to St. Louis, some were packed in Kansas City and in other places along the way too.
The next big stop was Ogallala, Nebraska, another community rich in cattle drive history.
They had the Nebraska State commemoration down there and gave Bud McCaslin a plaque and the drovers some stuff for coming through.
On the next main stop, Sheridan, Wyoming, residents lined Main Street. Monday morning, August 14th, local riders joined the parade to the fairgrounds for a celebration and chuck wagon dinners around town. On Saturday, August 19th, the herd left Sheridan north toward the final leg of the trip. When the drive would reach Montana, this would be the beginning of the end of the trail. Supporters gathered along the highway border to greet the drive and witness an historic event.
We wanted to just see it before it got to Miles City, see it out here, you know, along the way on the trail before it hit town.
Well, I just come out to see this cattle drive. You know, this is quite a thing. It come all the way from Texas, man. Anybody that can sit in the saddle all the way from Texas has to be a pretty good hand, I'll tell you.
Once in a lifetime to come see this cattle drive come from my home state of Texas to Miles City. I went down and saw them off.
I've always been interested in cattle drives, and I've taken part in all of them until this past year.
Well, I like it so far. I'm waiting for the cattle to come over the hill.
You can't wait, huh?
Can't wait. It's just great. And I think how wonderful it was that they actually made it all the way through here.
This is probably the first and last time this is going to happen in a long time, or, you know, since...
Probably ever.
Ever.
We're just out here. We're going to escort the cattle drive into Montana, just out having a good time.
As spectators waited anxiously by the Montana border, the word was out that there was going to be another special guest besides the Circle 95 brand Longhorns.
Rumor has it President Clinton might be with him. I don't know. Might be a wild rumor.
Well, I talked to one lady that started out from Texas with him, and she said that the president called him last night, said he would be here.
Is that right? Well, that'd be awful nice.
Things going to happen right when they cross the border here.
Well, they're probably going to all do a big wahoo, you know, and have a big party and kegs of beer and stuff right on the other side. That's what's going to happen.
Supposedly they were supposed to bring him in a helicopter, somebody said, but nobody's seen a helicopter or heard for sure that if he was going to come over from Jackson Hole or not.
I was kind of wondering, when is this president supposed to be in? Have you heard any more about that or anything like that?
He's not going to be in.
He's not going to be in. Well, doggone it anyhow, are there?
The president didn't show up, but it didn't seem to make much difference to the people who trailed the Longhorns all the way from Texas. They were just happy to have finally made it to Montana. The entourage was led by two ladies from Sheridan, among others who were prepared to exchange flags at the border.
How are you? How are you today? What do you think about seeing the Montana border? Pretty nice. Fantastic.
Great. Glad to be here.
No, we ran them off. Ahead, sir.
We lost to the Indians.
No, man, thank you. I sure don't. First steer over the line. There he goes.
You come all the way from Texas with him, did you?
Yes, sir.
Huh?
Glad to be here, too.
Good. Good.
It's great because that means we're just about to Miles City, just a few more days of traveling and we'll be done.
Have you been on the trail all the way?
Yes, sir.
And what's your name?
I'm Gordon Jones and I'm from Oxford, Nebraska.
Some of these people drove several hundred miles just to be here. This was their whole bit. They probably planned this for months. I myself have planned on this for since Walt Sequist left here with his cattle and horses in April in his chuck wagon.
The Great American Cattle Drive had now reached a milestone. Despite all the predictions they would never make it, they were now across the border of their last state and on their way to Miles City, just 2 weeks away and 100 and some miles. Bill Harrington of Kick Radio is talking to Gloria Schaefer, who's been an outrider on the drive since Texas.
Just decided I wanted to do something like this, and I was fortunate enough that they would let me do it.
But the trail riders weren't done for the day. They still had several miles to go before pitching camp in Decker, Montana. The community is marked by a single post office building on State Highway 338. Here is where they would hold their across-the-line border party and celebration featuring a barbecue, beverages, music, and dancers. While the drovers were resting in Decker, the anticipation was now building in Miles City.
I just noticing today all the out-of-town cars, out-of-state cars, they're already coming in. I think it's exciting. I think it's good for the town. I think it's good for the community, and all the cowboys that have worked so hard coming up from Texas all the way through. It's a real experience for them.
One of the cowboys here is from our hometown there in Graham, and then we've got quite a few buddies and this and that that's in it.
This thing's probably not going to happen again, and it's a kind of a once-in-a-lifetime deal, and I've got to have a bigger crew for this than I do for the bucking horse sale to put this together. So.
We're having a steak fry out to the ranch when the last camp before they come into town, and all the drovers are going to be eating with us, and from both the lonesome drovers and the main drive, and we hope a lot of other people.
You expect to have a pretty good crowd for the sale?
I would think somewhere between 5,000 and 50,000. I suppose I could guess.
That's a pretty big spread.
It is, but who knows?
We have 5 big grills, and we think we can cook 100 or 125 steaks at a time.
We're all members of a Forest Service strike team. Got sent down here to prevent the spread of wildfire because of this big event.
We've got 5 grills that are 2 foot by 3 foot. We got more grills than any cafe in the Miles City.
We're from the Three Rivers River District on the Kootenai National Forest, and we're sent down here with 5 other engines to protect any wildfires that might start from the extra people on the cattle drive out in the wildland areas.
What up, Slice? How are you?
Hey, you guys want to move?
What for?
We better move along before the anticipation heats up too much. Folks are not only coming in from around the country to prepare for the arrival of the Great American Drive, but they're here to reminisce about the way life used to be during the trail drive days. Many had to be here for an event that was not likely to ever happen again. Jack Schmidt remembers what cattle country used to be like in eastern Montana.
My father had a ranch up here on the Powder River, and we lived there for a number of years. In fact, I was there in 1933 when the last Southern Cattle Drive came through our ranch and shipped out of Blatchford. There used to be a big stockyard down there, and I was by there this morning, and it's gone, absolutely gone.
The days of the old trail drives are gone, including many of the landmarks that went with it, but the memories and the mystique of the Old West continue on. Not since the 1880s has Miles City been host to a cattle drive. The Great American Cattle Drive was now just south of Ashland, Montana, in Cheyenne Indian Reservation country. The drovers were pointing their herd north along the Tongue River, just on the border of the Custer National Forest. For the next few days, they would be trailing in the heat. This was real cowboy country, wide open rangeland, grasses with just the right ingredients. This is where the cattle ranged over 100 years ago. For many, it was like coming home.
My mother read a great deal to us, and we knew about the cowboys from when we could toddle around. So we had a good grounding in that before we ever went out to see them. When we went out to see them, it was no surprise. And we sat around the campfire, and you could smell the bacon frying a half a mile away from there, and get down and get some of that hot coffee. We used to call it mud, Java in those days. It was a great memory for me to be up here, see these guys.
I was going to send a bunch of throwaway cameras to my buddy in Buffalo, Oklahoma, and have him take pictures for me. And the daughter said, "Dad, that's where you grew up." Says, "They're coming right through your main streets. I'm taking you right to Portland to the plane."
So when you found out about this drive, you just headed out to join it, is that correct?
Right, I headed right out for home. And I grew up right on the trail. The wagon tracks are right under my bedroom. I slept on them for 21 years and didn't know all about anything like this.
Well, you must have been the youngest person on the cattle drive that didn't have, somebody supervising them, so to speak. Is that right?
Yep.
So you're 11 years old and you joined the cattle drive and just came on up to Miles City, Montana.
Yep. It was fun.
What was it like?
Oh, it was a lot of work, but it was the funnest thing I've ever done.
Any special problems out there on this drive?
We had a bunch of stampedes. We probably had 60 or 70 stampedes between Texas and here. They're always pretty exciting to try to get the steers back together again and, handled before they got plumb loose from us. I had a blast, really did. Best of both worlds. I love messing with the horses and the steers and the fine people that we met along the way, as well as playing my music too was a wonderful thing.
The cattle are prowling, the coyotes are howling, way out where the doggies roam. Where spurs are a-jingling, a cowboy is singing his lonesome cattle call.
On Saturday, August 25th, the herd trailed through the ranch of famous cowboy poet Wally McRae. That night, they camped on the Ball Ranch, just 12 miles north of Ashland. This was the night of the Hank Thompson and Crowd Thinners concert. The night before, the Hager brothers were rained out. They partied at the Office Bar in Ashland.
I've got some special guests out there I'd like to recognize tonight. Getting to come and play in Ashland, it's been a long time since I spent any time here in Ashland, and getting to come to play here, I thought of some summers that I spent here 25 years ago. Out at the Fletcher Ranch with Ted and Teggy Fletcher. They're right here in front. Got them front row seats. They had to bring their own chair, though. We're going to do a song for them. You might want to get up and dance on this one. Far across the deep blue water lives an old German's daughter. By the banks of the old river Rhine. By the sand stars above you, I swear I love you, 'cause you are my pretty Fräulein.
Rise and shine! Mornings come early on the trail. There's important chores to get done, wrangling the horses and rounding up the herd.
When we first left Fort Worth, the days were pretty short, and it was 8 o'clock before we'd get to rolling, and then finally we got it cut down to 7, and then at the last we was rolling at 6 o'clock every morning. But everybody had something to do, and they got so they'd just roll out and do their thing, and then they'd ring the bell, and we'd go and eat breakfast and be on our way. Dancer Davis, he was always the first one up. He slept under the wagon, and I slept in the wagon, and I could always hear Dancer. He'd get up about 3:30 or 4 o'clock and build up the fire, and I could hear him getting water out of the barrel for the coffee, and I'd always ask him how the weather was, and he'd tell me if it was raining or it was cloudy or it was clear. But and I'd go grain my horses and harnessed them a lot of mornings in the dark. By daylight, the other crew would start to stirring around. Most of the pastures we stayed in was small, and it didn't take them probably 30 minutes to run the horses in the corral, and everybody go catch their horse and take them someplace and grain them. And we tried to get that all done before breakfast time, so as soon as breakfast over, we could start breaking camp and start to rolling.
The drovers, horses, cattle, and support vehicles would head out on the trail early in the day, sometimes on a highway right of way. The mess wagon would always move out ahead of the herd to get ready for lunch or the next camp. Cooking out on the trail for a bunch of hungry cowboys is a challenging and demanding job. These cowboys exhibit an example of fine dining in this setting from the 1880s.
Dancer Davis, he was a good cook. Everything he cooked was really tasty. He had a big frying pan that he would, I don't know, it must have been 3 feet across, looked like, and he would fried cabbage, and I don't know what all he put. Well, I know one thing he put in it was a can and a half of Dr. Pepper. He fed 300 people one night with 12 Dutch ovens. Dancer was a good cook. Everything he cooked was really tasty. We eat quite a few beans. That's all right, I like beans. I got along great. But
The beans? Oh, yeah. The cook was a big difference in the drive, because if you didn't have a good cook, you didn't have very good morale either.
When you do a job like this, it's part of the deal, getting up early in the morning, and you're the last one to go to bed at night, except for the ones that are at the beer garden. You got to get it done, because when they got to be going when sun is cool, and it's kind of it gets hot real early out there, and by 10 o'clock they can't hardly travel too well anymore. But that's all part of the deal. They ate pretty good out there. The last breakfast I served, we had 77 people for breakfast, and I did bacon and eggs and pancakes, and I fried all the eggs for the people, and we did it in 20 minutes. The grill I cook on there, it's used wood, And in the back end where I do the roasts and stuff, I use briquettes. I also have an oven on it, and I can bake bread, and I can do biscuits, and I can cook pies and cakes, and you can do barbecued steak, chicken, barbecued ribs, roast beef, meatloaf. We're also doing corn on the cob and baked beans and just about all of it. So everything seemed to taste pretty good, I guess. Everybody liked it.
The food was great. I'll tell you, we had peach cobbler the first night I was with them up by Ogallala up there, and peach cobbler out of a Dutch oven is just pretty hard to beat.
You can tell Dwayne likes that peach cobbler. While the main herd was moving northeast along the Tongue River, several wagon trains were also on their way to Miles City for a wagon train rendezvous with the Great American Cattle Drive. The Jordan Circle Group, Rosebud, and Ingomar. The Ingomar bunch is made up of a group of big drive of 89 wranglers, wagoneers, and outriders who hold a reunion each year in honor of the Great Montana Centennial Cattle Drive. The wagon train had started at Ingomar and headed east toward Miles City. They were traveling through open ranch country for 6 days and nights before reaching Miles City.
Have you been on other cattle drives?
Well, just 89 and the other Wrangler drives. And we had a wagon the first time, and the rest of the time we just took our saddle horses and went, attached ourselves to somebody's wagon. I thought it was great. Everybody I saw that didn't go wished they had.
You been ranching all your life?
Well, yeah, I've taught school and done some things in between, but we still ranched all the time, yes.
Well, we had a pair of colts on the wagon, and tongue broke and jammed in the ground and it tipped over. As simple as that, yeah. I'm riding horseback now. Don't worry, I won't stumble. I traded for a horse one time. He wouldn't take no beauty prize. He was long-eared, blue-roan gelding. Not too bad for weight and size. I had a lot of tough old circles to make, and that trader guaranteed that this horse could show me lots of country and not need too much rest or feed. He said, now this ain't no kid's horse, but he'll pack you up the crick. He'll hump up on occasions, and he has been known to kick. I couldn't sell him to just anyone without having some remorse. But if you're sure enough a cowpuncher, mister, he's your kind of horse.
You know, a lot of us here have parents who have homesteaded in this country and have set their satchels down here and have raised their families here and try to make a living on this land. And they take care of this land, and they're the best stewards of this land that we'll ever know, because it's all they have.
We get people from all over the United States coming. It's unbelievable to them, and these gals that come tonight, or come in last night, were reporters from Los Angeles and Calgary and New York. And this gal rode with me in the wagon, and she's just in awe. The open country, and you let the horses loose, and this and that, and I let her drive my team, and she said, I thought you were just sitting here doing nothing. And her arms got tired, and so it's quite an experience. I got to give those guys a lot to come from Texas up here with cattle and riding every day, and there's a lot of hardships there. But in those days, they weren't spoiled and had all these easy things to go to, so they just stayed on the trail and lived with it. Now I'm looking forward to it. That's why I come on this one.
Probably not everyone would agree with Art that they were spoiled on the Great American Drive. Wagon boss Walt Sechrist and mess wagon cook Harvey Dancer Davis stayed out with the herd the whole trip. There were no motels or hot showers for these guys.
Dancer Davis and I were the only two that stayed in camp every night. The rest of them, when they get into camp, would get in a vehicle and go to town, get in a motel and stuff. And I was the oldest hand on the drive, and I'd give them young guys a bad time for being a baby, you know, and of course I had to stay after that because they'd have given me a bad time.
On July 29th in Gillette, Wyoming, Walt Sechrist was fired from the Great American Drive by trail boss Bud McCasland.
We'll have a meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning. He said probably the most important meeting of this whole trip, and we all thought it was something to do about the steers. And he got us all around there and said, well, what this meeting's about, he said, Walt Sechrist won't be with us anymore. He said, I'm letting him go for insubordination. And I guess that meant I wouldn't do what he wanted me to, and I guess he was right, because he wanted me to keep the chuck wagon behind the cattle, and that's not the way you do it. When you break camp, your chuck wagon leaves, and your cavy of horses goes next, and then the cattle. And the reason for that is your chuck wagon go on, set up camp at the next place, and when the cowboys get there, you'll have coffee and something for them to eat, ready to go. And so I wouldn't put the wagon behind the herd, and I knew I was aggravating him, but I didn't really realize I was aggravating him that much. And after he let me go, then he drew a line in the sand and said anybody that feels that Walt's being done wrong wants to go with him can cross this line, and 6 of them crossed the line and went with me.
So Walt and his small gang packed up and headed out on their own. Walt had his own workhorses, chuck wagon, and cut his small herd of 5 head from the main herd. Along the way, people had thrown in another 42 more head. Walt said all the way to Miles City, people were just great.
There was a couple out of Sheridan that caught up with us next morning. They seen it in the paper where the split had been, and they run a butcher house down there and specialize in sausage. And they came to us and wanted to know if we needed anything. They wanted to know what we had for grub and what we had for cooking utensils. And we told them all we had was a coffee pot, and we didn't even have any coffee. So they went back to town and got enough supplies for us for a week and brought us Dutch ovens and Ace Hardware there in Gillette. That man brought us canvas and paint for our wagon. We put Lonesome Drover up on the side of the wagon and stuff, and whatever we needed out of his store, he just brought it to us and didn't charge us anything for it.
At the first camp, one man built them some irons to hang their coffee pot and Dutch ovens on. People brought them grain for their horses, meat for themselves. So much they had it left over. Within 48 hours, they were handed $5,600 along the road. They called themselves the Lonesome Drovers while they were leading the main drive by 2 or 3 days on their way to Miles City. The Jordan Circle wagon train was heading south along Highway 59 for the same destination.
This is really a nice wagon train. They picked a splendid road. Real good road. A lot of nice people on this one, too. Even me. This is my birthday. I'm 77 years old.
Yeah, it's been a entertaining trip. No major wrecks. Everybody's just a real good group of people. Everybody pitches in and works together. Been great.
Most of us kind of wanted to come down and watch the cattle arrive in Miles City, so we thought we'd just bring our wagons down and kind of throw in with them and have a good parade when we get there. So far, we've had real good luck. Nobody's had any trouble. We did hurt one horse a little first day, but they got him took care of, and since then, things have been going real well. We've got 10 wagons in our circle. We figure, I don't know, probably 75 people. Probably close to 50 outriders today. We've picked up a few since we started.
It was hot the first day we were out there. Yesterday we had a nice cool breeze, and today we're getting a little hot again. This is our longest day going in, and we're heading for Miles City to hook up with the gang.
And we hate men.
So how'd you get the name Sliver?
I don't know if I can say that over the mic or not. There hasn't been anybody that's had more fun on here than I have, and if they have, it just breaks my heart. I haven't seen an antelope on the whole thing. I figured that we'd see herds of them. Did run into some horny toads. Spooked my mule, those little horny toads. You know what a horny toad is, don't you?
I missed the M89 up there from Roundup to Billings, and I thought I'd better just enjoy this one here, because this might be the last one. You never know. Because everything is getting so damn much gravel and barbed wire everywhere. Hell, you can't hardly go anywhere, it seems like. And we got some really nice landowners here that we went through today and yesterday, just willing as hell, and helped us out everything we had wanted and needed. Brought ice cold beer and ice and a lot of good hospitality, and everything has just really been working good.
This is an old grain wagon. It used to hold about 135 bushel. And they've been giving us a little hell along the trail because we've been holding things up. We got a bad wheel over here. We got to put barbed wire on, pound it back together. But otherwise, it's a pretty good wagon, I guess. Got a lot of good friends. Till the beer runs out, then they ain't worth a darn.
But you can always find shade. Get under your horse's belly or something, huh?
We have a country school over here at Twin Butte School is what it's called. And this is our day at school. Yeah! We decided to let the kids come out, and this would be an educational day for them and let them experience what it was kind of like in the olden days and stuff. So I think they think it's better than being at school.
Where are you guys from?
Twin Butte School in the country. Tori.
Tori. What's yours?
Tasha. Tanner. Brianna. Marshall.
Are you guys enjoying all this?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
We've just been riding along and having just an excellent time. Weather's been good, everything's been just great. You know what a horny toad is, don't you? You don't? You haven't seen them?
Of course we've seen them. Haven't all experienced wagon drovers? The wagon trains were on the way to Miles City for their big rendezvous. The Great American Cattle Drive was now continuing to move north along the east side of the Tongue River in Custer Country. The days were getting blistering hot. The cattle were moving slow. It was a far cry from the wet and cold rain of the first half of the trip. The last 2 weeks were starting to become the toughest part of the journey.
That was hell. The last 2 weeks was all gravel road, sleeping in the sagebrush, biting flies, skeeters. It was just every camp was just getting a little worse. Hauling water. It was, I think the last inch you do of anything is the hardest part.
Last couple of weeks was real rough. It was 150 miles of gravel road, and the steers were sore, and the gravel didn't help them any. And extremely hot. It was real hot the last 2 or 3 weeks. Through it all, it was worth it. It really was. It was all worth it.
The cattle moved out real slow because we was on gravel road the whole way, so it made the days really long. We was pulling 10-hour days in the saddle because the cattle walking out so slow. And we crippled up a bunch of cattle, or the cattle crippled up a lot when we got on this dirt road. There one day we had around 27 that we had to pull out of the herd and had to haul just because they got sore-footed on all them rocks. We drove them down bar ditches and cross country most of the times, which was on dirt. And which of all the road to go down the last 2 weeks of these cattle being just as hard as they can be, they had this was the hardest trail they had to take, was the very end of it.
We got rained on in 3 states almost all the way through it, and then it tried burning us up at the last, but I've had a lot of fun and I learned a lot.
So how about the last couple of weeks coming up here? What was that like from the Montana border to here?
Long, because everybody's expecting to get there, and then they're thinking what they're going to do, so all you got is all day to sit around and think about it.
When it gets hot, they like to slow down a lot. They don't go very fast when it's hot weather.
The cows didn't mind the tornadoes and all that, they just don't like the heat.
Yeah, they don't like the heat. They don't mind the rain because it's cool for them, but they don't like that heat.
While the main herd was continuing to battle the heat, the Rosebud group was on its way to join the wagon train rendezvous in Miles City. It was a small one, but not short on spirit. The group left Hoardley Saddlery in Hathaway on Tuesday, August 29th, headed south into the open country and journeyed east, south of the free-flowing Yellowstone River in the central portion of Rosebud County.
I kind of take care of this team and the wagon, and Bonnie does most of the cooking, and she makes a lot of the decisions on when, where, and so forth. Of course, I had to help her. I helped her a lot picking the route and driving it first to find out we could get permission from the landowners and so forth.
We wanted to go see the trail herd come in, and we figured the slowest route would probably be the best one. I don't know how many of us are going to be in the parade behind the steers, but because we want to see them, but we'll be in Saturday morning. I think it's a neat deal. Things like this don't happen nowadays, and I know they had some troubles on the trail, and I know some of the people that were involved in some of the troubles, and they're all pretty good guys. On a wagon train, you don't appreciate what the people that came across America like this really went through until you get on one of these wagons and do a few miles and hear the creaking of the wheels and your horses starting to puff and pant and sweat and not want to give up, but it's fulfilling. It is.
Well, there were a couple, a rattlesnake and a horse with hobbles that kind of threw himself, but no real major things. Couple of minor wrecks with the wagons, but no big things, just little things.
The first day was pretty exciting. We stopped for lunch and we got chased by a rattlesnake, and since I'm deathly afraid of them, I had to get somebody to wrangle my horse for me because I wasn't going back without him, so I pulled out fast. I told him he could have that whole territory.
Basically, I'm retired, but I have to keep occupied, so I rebuild buggies and dug one out of a juniper tree that had been there about 75 years and redid it, put new wheels, new box, built the seat, do my own harness work. They interest me immensely.
Did you enjoy this train?
Yes, I did. It's a good experience. I've packed out before, but I've never been on a wagon train.
Ever been on a cattle drive?
I own cattle, so I know how to drive them, yeah.
So you weren't interested in going down to Texas and pushing a few up here then?
Yes, I would have liked that if I could have got off and had enough money to do it. That would have been fun.
The wagon trains pulled into Miles City on Thursday, August 31st, scheduled to parade down Main Street. The lonesome drovers had moved ahead of the main herd about 2 or 3 days, following basically the same trail. They continued to get great support along the way. The breakaway group got to the outskirts of Miles City by noon on Monday and set up camp on Small Ranch, the first cattle drive from Texas to Montana in 109 years. Miles City was ready. Events were scheduled all over town this Labor Day weekend: barbecues, street dances, rodeos, shows, tours, and a Western trade show.
We have T-shirts, sweatshirts, and we have silk screened ones and stitched ones. And they have the Great American Trailhead, 95 Miles City, Montana on them.
So far, we've been very, very pleased. There's a lot of people out, and everybody's in a real good mood, and I think it's going to be a good trade show. We were involved in the big drive of '89, and we didn't want to miss this one. We've got a lot of Western jewelry, gifts, clothes for men, women, and kids, and lots of big drive buckles.
I just have a little bit here that I made for the cattle drive. I'm just going to make 5 of them. It's numbered in the side of the cheek piece. You got a state of Texas on the bottom of the cheek piece and a state of Montana on the top with a trailhead going up in sterling silver. And then this is 14 karat gold overlay.
I joined the trail ride over at Knoblochs on the other side of Ashland. And I seen him in Wyoming, visited with him, and I wasn't going to go back, and my wife said, if you don't go back, you're going to be kicking yourself the rest of your life. For the simple reason, my grandfather came up with the XIT ranch, married my grandmother at that time was Alice Harris, an Indian lady on Northern Cheyenne Reservation, and then I come from the white man's side with the he was in the Custer battle, and as a 19-year-old boy, my grandfather's Black Bear, my dad was Black Hawk, and I'm Mavis, Redbird. But I do artwork, and this is after I rode with him, it inspired me to do this.
Oh, wow.
What I did is I started with Texas, had the Texas, the drovers, cattle, the longhorn. It even has the spurs all the way through, come back. Longhorns, and this is the steer that is named Hooker. He's got one good horn, one horn that bends out. He was the first steer to cross the border at Montana and Wyoming. So this kind of inspired me to do this, and it's on its way back with the gentleman that owns the steer.
My brother and I started this business 2 years ago making chandeliers. We were inspired by the Mosworth furniture that was being built around Cody, Wyoming, which is where I grew up. My father has had a ranch there all his life, and so did my grandfather, and we've raised cattle all our life, and we're inspired by the Western theme and would like to help keep it alive by our fixtures and just kind of bring a little beauty into somebody's home. I do the artwork, and I cut the chandeliers out with a plasma arc, and my brother does the welding and does the blacksmithing.
Everything I do, my glass and my horns, are done freehand. I use no patterns, no stencils, anything like that. And all my work is done with small diamond and carbide burrs.
Are you depicting anything in particular there, or is it just scenes that you like?
Scenes I like, depicting basically ranch work. I don't do the old West as much as the medium West, where people rode horses and chased cows.
Sheriff here in Custer County, Tony Harbaugh, asked any of us that could get away to come down and help him, and that's what we're doing. Just whatever he needs, we're here to help him.
Did y'all volunteer to do that, or?
Sure we did, sure.
I saw deputies and sheriffs from I think, several counties. I noticed the Rosebud.
Yeah, several counties are here, represented across the state of Montana, in here helping the Miles City and Custer County.
As law enforcement personnel came from around to help out, so did families at roundup time. They held contests which became ranch rodeos. The Great American Cattle Drive held statewide ranch rodeos in all of the 6 states on the way up. Montana's was on Friday, September 1st, and the 6-state championship rodeo was on Saturday, September 2nd.
It's not like a regular rodeo. The ranchers at roundup time would get together and have a little contest just on a day off, just for the cowboys to have a little entertainment.
It's more like what the cowboys do every day out on the ranches. Mugging event, roping, heading and heeling, riding the horses, the broncs, and whatnot. All of them, they really relate to what the cowboy does for a living.
Had the pinning and the branding, team roping, double mugging, cow milking, bronc riding. We all done it all. Every team member does everything.
We ride in the Ranch Rodeo Association down there. About every 2 weeks, we usually go into one somewhere in Texas.
So the purpose is not to win anything, but just competition to exhibit your skill as a cowhand?
Yeah, you're showing off your skills. You're showing off your horses as well. And they're a lot of fun, a lot of family-oriented people in these ranches. So they love to compete like this just for fun. Or, of course, it's always great to win, too, you know.
But fun is the main thing.
Fun is the main thing, yes, sir.
One young man got injured a little bit tonight. Have you heard anything about him?
I haven't heard how he's doing. I think he's going to be okay, but I really don't know. You know, there's always that chance that something can happen, especially on rough stock.
Our team's, I'm 34 and Bud's around 34 and
43 and 45.
Yeah, we got one of the older teams going down the road.
Yeah. So you could.
A lot of kids, they get in.
It'll be too long before you get in the old timers rodeo, huh?
Yeah.
That's right.
When I reach the end of Rodeo Road, don't shed no tears for me.
I enjoy this immensely. We've been to the national finals in Las Vegas. We've been to, and we live near Bozeman, so we've been to the college national finals rodeo nearly every year. This is different, interesting, and I can relate to this better than the professional rodeos.
Walked in leather boots, and I've always rolled along. When I reach the end of rodeo road, don't shed no tears for me. When I reach the end of rodeo road, set my ponies free. They say my days are numbered, and they say I'm way too old. Oh, but I still feel the hunger to ride in the rodeo. When I reach the end of rodeo road, before you bury me. When I reach the end of rodeo road, set my ponies free. Set my ponies free.
So what do these rodeo guys do when they retire? Frank Askin, from a family well known in the rodeo business, didn't set his pony free. Instead, he rents it out. His horse not only works for a living, but he's a famous actor as well, starring in the movie Lonesome Dove, the inspiration for the great American cattle drive itself.
Over, I work in the picture business, and I move around and follow motion pictures. I'm all over. Just a couple months ago, I was in Kansas City, done a picture about Harry Truman. And I come back and worked on a Marlboro commercial up in Livingston here about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I guess. Or my horse did, I'll put it that way. My sister's worked in the picture business since Little Big Man, which was done in about '68. And she still works in the picture business. And when we sold the ranch, I ended up down in Tucson and I started in again. I've done it off and on all my life. But this horse I own is one that they cut the throat on, and Robert Duvall kicked him over and then supposedly hid behind him and shot at Indians. That's the horse. He's done a lot of pictures. He's probably done 20 pictures. So he's well known in Hollywood, but he's good at what he does. He does it good.
What do you think of bringing the movie horse in?
It's wild. It's wild.
Paul likes all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know, you talk about somebody who's been in the movies a lot, but it's kind of funny talking about a horse, you know? A good horse can handle the guns, you know? Doesn't get excited.
There were plenty of people getting excited downtown. Besides the barbecues, there were chuck wagon steak fries, chuck wagon breakfast, cowboy breakfast, breakfast in the park, VFW steak and eggs breakfast. Breakfast was big, but so was the Testicle Festival, sponsored by the Bison Bar at the corner of 7th and Main.
Are you going to do it?
Probably. As soon as the line gets lower.
You know, when the oil runs out in the pots there, then they serve them raw.
That's all right. No problem.
What's your name?
I'm Dot.
From where?
New Jersey.
You're from New Jersey, too. You going to have some?
I don't know yet.
I've had worse things. No, they're good. Tastes like kidneys or something. No, my grandmother used to make kidneys.
Here, you want to finish some?
What are you supposed to dip them in? I know you got to dip them in something.
What's your name?
Jennifer.
She's shy. Ask her.
Are you shy, Jennifer?
Ask him.
His legs aren't bruised, so we didn't want to talk to him.
Come on, Keith. Tell her her name.
What's your name, sir? Where are you from?
Heath Reeder, Boulder, Montana.
What do you think about the testicles?
Damn fine, but I wouldn't eat them raw. I wouldn't eat them right off the calf, nothing like that.
How you like those?
The nut there or the fries? I tell you, they're good. They're excellent.
Had those before?
Oh, absolutely.
You ranch?
A little bit. A little bit.
Probably every spring.
Yeah, yeah.
Ever try them raw?
No, I don't care for them raw.
I heard some Texans down here said that was the only way to do it. That's why.
Well, they're men, you know, and I like mine deep fried.
I really like them. That's just, oh yeah.
Full of vitamin C. Oh, you bet.
I don't know. I might have to get another plate then.
Yeah, they're good. They're good. Yeah, these are delicious.
2, 3, 4.
Thank you. Hi, what's your name and where you from?
Carl Thompson, Justin, Texas.
Texas.
Why, sure.
How's those testicles taste?
Well, kind of like chicken McNuggets.
Chicken McNuggets.
Why, sure.
What's your name?
Carl Thompson from Columbus, Montana.
How'd you like them?
They kind of taste like rabbit turds.
Your name?
Brian Mothershead.
What do you think of them?
They're all right.
I don't.
What'd you think about the parade?
Sure. I didn't see the parade.
Oh.
I didn't get in here in time.
Oh, well, we're sorry.
Don't worry, Ray. There's 2 big parades this weekend, but the parade that took 6 months to get here is coming through town today. Miles City welcomes the Great American Cattle Drive. People came from around the country to see this one. Texas was well represented, as well as the other cattle drive states. They came in on their wagons, hitching up their teams, getting ready for their arrival. Not since Gus McRae of Lonesome Dove slept here has there been so much excitement. This was the end of the trail for the cowboys and support crew who trekked 1,500 miles to get here.
Have you been out there roping any cows?
Well, we didn't do cows. We only ride it, and it's called a parade.
People love a little taste of history, taste of nostalgia. Like to see authentic wagons and women riding side saddle. Takes people back to an earlier era. I frankly wish that there was a little more of a tie with the book Lonesome Dove, ending up with the cattle drive ending up in Miles City.
My grandfather originally was from Montana. He homesteaded out here and lived here for about 4 or 5 years, and my dad always, a dream of his was to come back out here and see where his dad was born and lived, and that's why we're here.
I never seen so many wagons in one place in all my life. It looks like it's going way back, about in 1890, huh?
That's like the people in the field, and as someone said, it's a marriage of 2 centuries, and it's exciting.
We have a panel with us. Ron Robinson plays the piano, and we're gonna have it on the back of the Surrey to town tomorrow. Every morning, every night and every morning. In the mornings, we play God Bless America before we hitched up the team and moved the herd out. Today, while the Great American Cattle Drive went by, we saluted them. We tipped our hats to them and sang God Bless America to the guys on the other drive, the Great American Cattle Drive, because there are a lot of them that are friends. And we just saluted them for what they did, what they went through and everything.
If you're from Dallas, you probably got some friends and folks that you know that are drovers or something on this train.
There's one lady, her name is Annie Golightly. She's an entertainer. She made it all the way. She rode with the only lady cowboy in the whole bunch.
We bought a black steer, a 4-year-old in Fort Worth, and branded him with the Goodnight brand, and he's on the drive. And he's in Miles City today. He left Fort Worth on March the 5th.
So he's coming up the street here shortly then?
Coming up the street, a little black 4-year-old.
We got here a week ago. We've been in town, but not in town, just right outside of town, the Lonesome Drovers. And we just met the cattle drive today on the road, welcomed them into the city. And I got a little teary-eyed watching that because I knew every one of them boys, and we're all good friends. Tomorrow's our parade.
That's alive and a kicking today. It was a wonderful time for the kids growing up in an era learning right from wrong. They used to ride the range on a little stick horse, singing a happy song. Many years have passed and they've all grown up. Their kids are married and moved away. But they keep coming back singing happy trails. They're alive and living today.
Boy, what a drive. I saw, as I came down through Miles City, as we made the turn in through for the town, there was about
50 mailboxes sitting on there, some of them standing behind them. I said, run and get me a mailbox and nail it up here. I'm going to stay.
So you think you'd like to be on a cattle drive all the way from Texas?
I don't know. I don't know where I'm really gonna live, but I'm sure gonna live somewhere. It's a long ways. It's a long ways to Texas. It's only 55 miles out of Miles City. And I had really fun riding. It was fun. I like riding too.
It won't really sink in until I drive away from all the friends that I've met, and you know all the guys that would become pretty good friends along the drive. Then it'll sink in that it's over. It ain't over yet.
It's a good experience for us, so.
Yeah, we learned a lot.
Yeah. I'm excited that I did it. I'm excited that I did it with my dad.
For the cowboys who rode with the herd every day, it would be a while before they realized they're not getting up at the crack of dawn to trail cattle. It was hard to believe they were finally here. Thousands of spectators lined the streets in 93-degree heat to see the slow-moving cattle and cowboys make that final mile. The herd headed out to the fairgrounds to get ready for that auction block. But the fun wasn't over yet. The celebration was just beginning. Starting with a several-block street dance, the auction, and Lonesome Drover parade, people were reflecting on the drive.
I'm the only leprechaun in town. I've been sent by the king of the leprechauns to give folks wishes. I can't give you gold. I can't afford gold. Wishes are cheaper than gold, but you have to believe I'm a leprechaun. Then you have to believe you'll get your wish. Then 3, don't forget about the leprechaun fund. I'm holding out the end of the year for homeless leprechauns.
2/3 of the people, I would just estimate now, 2/3 of the people are either not from this town, but a third of them is from out of state even, come to see this. So hell, when they leave, we've had it. You wait till Monday, be a ghost town.
I'm from California. I hear that's a bad word out here. Because everybody's so nice, friendly, and it's beautiful here, and gosh, I just love it. It's been a lot of fun. And I can't wait to go dancing tonight. I came up here to find a cowboy.
Oh, yeah.
Do you come into town for the drive and the auction? You gonna stay for everything?
I won't stay for the auction, probably. I did come for the drives, come to visit some of the old-timers who aren't many left.
It's been a hell of a feat, I think, for what they've done. Everybody, Lonesome Drovers, the main drive, and everybody. These cowboys that came 1,500 miles with these steers and the shape these steers were in when they got to Miles City is remarkable. It's a long drive back to Texas, but I'm starting to want to get home, and I'm kind of wanting to keep on going up Canada or something. I ain't never driven up Montana before.
Oh, it should be a good drive back then.
Well, it ought to be exciting. It's a 2-cab, and there are 3 of us, so.
You think you'll be able to stand going that fast after being 5 months on the trail like that?
Oh, I don't know. It feels kind of weird, and I was telling Walt the other day, when he wants to stop, it seems like he's pulling back on the steering wheel, because he drives the wagon, pulling back on the steering wheel when he wants to stop that truck of his. I'll be on the saddle before you know it, though.
You selling your horse and your tack now that you're here?
I'm selling 1 horse I have, no tack. No, people want to buy my hat and all that, but I don't want to sell it. It ain't for sale.
A lot of the cowboys didn't want to sell their gear. Some of the tack brought the highest prices at the auction. But tonight, people were gearing up for the street dance. The entire main street for several blocks was roped off by a people corral. It was a great together in the great outdoors of Miles City.
We're gonna go meet some cowboys.
Rich cowboys?
Yes, some good-looking cowboys.
So what do you know about the cattle drive?
Not much, but it's a bunch of wannabes, so.
Wannabes? Wanna be cowboys?
Yeah.
Point them out to me.
Everywhere. Right there.
Yeah.
Right there.
We just turned all out for them and gave them a great welcome, and as you can see here, this is a tremendous boost for Miles City.
It's very interesting for us to take in this drive because a lot of Montana is Texas.
Well, I think it's a very historical moment, and I hope people do respect it for that. You know, it was a great feat. A lot of people seem to think the cowboys and some of the supporters, the drovers, maybe we're trying to recapture a dream or, you know, relive a fantasy from when they were children, but really a lot of historical significance. It's a lot more serious than what it appears at first, and we're just really proud of them.
Cowboys believed in fair play
in honesty. If a man's word wasn't as good as a shake of his hand, you know, that's just the way it was. A lot of our heritage is based in our ideas and our beliefs are based on the values that the old cowboys had. And thank goodness maybe some of them aren't, but a lot of them are.
Dwayne must be referring to the Code of the West. The next big event was the Great American Cattle Drive Livestock and Equipment Auction, billed as the end of the trail sale. Items to be sold included 250 head of Texas Longhorns with the Circle 95 brand, definitely trail broke saddle horses, trailers and tack, artwork of the lead steer, and the chuck wagon.
Well, I've been the liaison between the Great American Cattle Drive and the Texas Longhorn Breeders Association for the past several months. And the whole purpose of the drive was to show the historic value of these cattle and what a reenactment of old trail drive was like. And, of course, to sell them at the end and make money just like they did back in the original days.
I bought a real nice steer. I bought a steer that is halter broke and broke to ride, and real fancy steer. One of the better steers that sold.
I'm Eddie Wood from Wynnewood, Oklahoma. I'm up here to auction off the steers. It's been a great thrill. I tell you what, it's something to see now.
So you are the Longhorn auctioneer?
Well, that's what they tell me, yes, sir.
Well, tell us a little bit about this breed of cattle.
Well, of course, the cattle, you know, are just the greatest cattle on this earth. I mean, you have no problem with them. The disease resistance, they have no calving problem. They'll fend for themselves. They'll live off where a jackrabbit can't make a living. They'll get along, and they'll come out of there fat and strong. And you notice that these steers that came in here off the trail traveling 1,500 miles, they look real good here yesterday.
They're showing them because they're more than just trophy steers. These cows are good mother cows, and they'll work in any kind of climate. Even Montana, there's some cattle up here that work on your first calf heifers, and then the females make good replacements up here. You know.
Just talking about weighing these cattle, I always say they're kind of like a needle. They can thread that horn anywhere they want to. They know where the horn is, and they'll take care of themselves.
The registered cattle are purebred Longhorns. The steers coming up here, nearly all of those were straight Longhorns. But they did a good job, and the people that brought them did a super job.
I just want to say one thing. You know, you all remember Charles Goodnight and Jesse Chisholm, those kind of people. Let's give this man a standing ovation. He raced right with him. It took a hell of a man with a lot of obstacles to get him here. Come on, let's give it to him. He's worth it now.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad to be here in Miles City. Looking forward to the auction this afternoon, and I hope each and every one of you enjoy yourself and remember what has happened not only today, but over the last 6 months of this cattle drive. Once again, thank you very much. I'm glad you're here. I hope you enjoy yourself, as I'm sure you will. Thank you.
We're going to bring that big steer up here. This is one of the lead steers. He's said to be the most dominant steer on the Cattle Drive. Eddie, take her over.
Here's one of the lead steers, boys. Gather around, help yourself. I want 5,000. What do you give? It's $1,500, $2,000. I get $1,500, baby. $2,000. I get $1,500, $1,600, $1,700. It's $1,700. I get $16, but it's $17. $17. I get $16, $17, $18, $19. Oh, I get $19. It bid me $19. $2,000. I get $2,000. Bid me $2, but it bid me $2,000.
I bought one real nice steer. Bought one. Now I got a hell of a problem trying to figure out how to get him home. So we thought that the steer sold under the money, to be truthful with you. We expected them to be a lot higher.
You would have thought they would have brought a little more as a collector's item.
We always wanted one of them steers. I did. I don't know why they bought one.
I watched them trail up through Wyoming, and so I decided I'd like to have one, so come over here and bid on them.
I'm going to just let it live until it dies, and then we'll have it mounted. We know I got a good friend that's a taxidermist. So.
We bid on one horse. We bid up to $3,300 on one, and we just quit. Horses sold well. Thought horses sold quite well.
Everything goes with the wagon. There's all your firearms, all your flies, your wagon sheet. It's built on military running gear frame, and that thing is held first out.
87, 80,000, 80,000, 99, 10,000, $10,000, 9, 10,000. Get a good chuck wagon now. Let's call here 11,000, $10,000, 11,000, 11,000, 11,000, $11,000, $11,000. You tell me 11,000, 11,000, 11,000 here tonight. Sold it $10,000 to Bud McCaslin in the Great American Cattle Drive.
The steers didn't bring in as much money as some of the organizers had hoped, averaging about $700 each, some as low as $350, only one of them at $2,500, while the Lonesome Drover steer topped at $6,500. Horses brought a much better price, averaging around $1,600, the highest price at $6,700. Horses' bits brought in as much as $300, and a pair of chaps fetched over $1,000. But attendance was great. 7,000 showed up. Saturday morning was the final parade, an extravaganza of non-motorized vehicles. The spirit and heritage of the Old West was alive today. The parade featured all the wagon trains, outriders, the rebel group of lonesome drovers, wagons, horses, bagpipers, flag carriers, politicians, can-can dancers, Timberjack Joe and his dog, wrangler horses, mules, mounted police and sheriffs. The spirit and enthusiasm was at an all-time high for the weekend celebration.
Hey, they any good?
Oh, it's the best video in town.
Wait, thank you, sir.
That old Texas sun sinking low in the west as I ride out across the range. It's been a hard day of riding, swear the strays are hiding out on the old Chisholm Trail. As the last rays of sunlight give way to the moonlight, the coyotes are starting to wail. Make my way to the wagon, my horse and I dragging out on the old Chisholm Trail. I'll ride the old Chisholm Trail, the Western and Bozeman as well. To Montana we're going, where the cool winds are blowing at the end of the old Texas Trail.
People are asking me now, what's your feeling, you know, and really tonight or today when we rode through town, it wasn't no different. It was like another day. And I'm sure it won't hit none of the guys until 2 or 3 days from now that, you know, it's over.
We left the stockyards of Fort Worth, headed north to Montana in the springtime of '95. With a cook and the cowboys and 300 longhorn, a great American cattle drive. We crossed the Red River, the cold made us shiver as we pushed for the other side. Though a bad wind is blowing, we'll just keep a-going, keeping the dream alive. I'll ride the old Chisholm Trail, the western and Bozeman as well. To Montana we're going, where the cool winds are blowing, at the end of the old Texas Trail.
I never thought that I'd ever be in Fort Worth, Texas, ride into Ogallala, Nebraska, and come into Miles City, Montana with a herd of longhorns on the hoof. I'll tell you, that's really quite a deal.
We'll spend 6 long months on the trail pushing north, just trailing the cattle along. Crossing rivers and prairies, my horse will carry me on up these old cattle trails. Through old Oklahoma, the plains of Kansas, Nebraska, Wyoming we'll go. To reach Miles City, that sight will be pretty. By September we'll make it, I know. I'll ride the old Chisholm Trail, the western and Bozeman as well. To Montana we're going, where the cool winds are blowing, at the end of the old Texas Trail. That old moon is rising on night guard, I'm a-riding, singing softly an old cattle call. As stars shine above me, I thank God that I'm free to ride these old cattle trails. With a campfire glowing in my heart, I'm knowing Miles City we soon will arrive. The steers are a-bawling, Montana is calling, the great American cattle drive. Oh, I'll ride the old Chisholm Trail, the western and Bozeman as well. To Montana we're going, where the cool winds are blowing, at the end of the old Texas Trail. Now the steers are a-bawling, Montana is calling, the great American cattle drive.
Everybody else goes down.
Wagons rolling, keep them doggies going dry. Through rain and wind and weather, hell-bent for leather, soon I'll be riding